oh, my name is my teacher.
Oh.
Because I was not a joyful person. I mean, I changed the spelling from Joy to Joie in my high school French class because it was just too much pressure to have the name Joy. I couldn't
Mhm.
relate to it. I felt like a phony. And even in my journey of learning how to be more emotionally connected, feeling joy was difficult. Being happy was never my goal. Being fulfilling my potential and experience fulfillment, that was always my goal. But happiness would be nice. But when I got the joy, it was like, oh, I have to train myself to feel the vibration because it's expansive.
Mhm.
This is Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney and Jenkins. Hello, and welcome to the 48th episode of Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. This week, I have with me Joie Seldon. Growing up, Joie Seldon dreamed of becoming a movie star. Her struggle for that dream, and ultimately falling short of it, led to decades of the exploration and study of human nature, interpersonal relationships, and emotions. Drawing from her unique background as a career development coach, actor and acting teacher, somatic therapist, entrepreneur, and innovator in emotional intelligence, she created Emotions at Work online course to help business professionals navigate difficult relationships and the complexities of being human at work. She is the author of Emotions, an owner's manual, and has presented to worldwide audiences online and on stage about the benefits and success secrets of emotional intelligence in the workplace. She has coached clients at NASA, AT&T, Wells Fargo, Dolby, Project Management Institute, Blue Shield, Nutanix, and more. And I had a really, really lovely time talking to Joy. We, I think, are very much kindred spirits and have so many similarities to our backgrounds, leading from acting and then intertwining that into the personal development and psychology realm. And I just had such a great time talking to her about her journey and also acting in particular. It's always such a treat when I'm able to dive in and discuss that at a deeper level. I know that Joy has a lot of information and even some exercises that you can take with you to help you process your emotions and understand them a little bit better by the end of this interview. So here she is, Joie Seldon. I feel like we have a lot in common in our backgrounds, actually, going from acting to studying sort of like emotions and psychology. So that's
Mm-hmm.
exciting. We'll see some overlaps there, maybe.
Yeah.
So, in order for you to be where you are now in your life, there's a lot of fascinating roads that I'm sure that you've taken to get there. And so, because this podcast is about following the inner authentic voice, I like
Mm-hmm.
to start by getting to know a little bit about Joy when she was beginning to blossom and see like when the first time, like even I know that you have an acting background, when that spark initiated with inside of you,
Mm-hmm.
um, just following that voice and that truth within you. Do you have a specific moment that you can recall, understanding that you had an inner voice of your own and it wasn't influenced by your surroundings or anyone around you?
I have a very specific incident, but as I think about this, it actually goes back a lot further. I always felt like I didn't belong in my family because I had my own perceptions. I had asthma as a kid, so I stayed home a lot
Mm-hmm.
by myself because my parents both worked. My siblings were much older, and I watched old movies on TV, and I wanted to be Katharine Hepburn. She
Okay.
was my idol. I was in love with Fred Astaire because I was a dancer. I
Mhm.
was in the San Antonio Civic Ballet Company. So there was something always calling me. And I ended up, my parents moved around a lot. My dad went to work for the Air Force and as a civilian, and I graduated from high school in Guam, and I just like, I have to get out of here.
Oh, wow.
So I moved back to the States to go to college. But so in all of this is kind of this internal determination in spite of objections and things from my parents. And so I always had that inner voice. But the really profound moment was after I had moved to LA to be an actor. And I had gotten some work, but I was always broke and poor and struggling and doing odd jobs and everything just to stay afloat. And one day I was standing in my bedroom, and I felt so despondent that I just didn't know what to do.
Mm.
I didn't have my rent. I didn't, I was so naive when I moved to LA with this dream of being a movie star. And I'm standing there, literally stuck to the floor. And I hear this voice in my head, clear as a bell. That was the first time I heard this really distinct voice say, God does not mean for you to be miserable.
Mm.
And I just went, oh, wow, that sounds right. Then why am I miserable? And why is my family miserable? Why am I here? What are we doing here?
Mhm.
Why do we exist? And that moment I had this I vowed to find out what the truth was about life.
Yeah.
And that sent me on a journey that in essence, I'm still on today.
Yeah. Can we go back to the moment when you were watching the movies with Katharine Hepburn and
Sure.
Fred Astaire? Because I would love to know like what it was about that really like drew you in.
Well, Katharine Hepburn was a woman didn't know in my personal life. I lived I grew up in Texas and Southern Baptist, super conservative, and she was strong and self-willed, and but she also was funny and had this sexuality about her at times, and so she had this combination of things. And I wanted to be her. I realized later on, when my desire to be a movie star was really, I wanted to be Catherine Hepburn. But it opened up a world to me that I didn't know in my own life that was so much more interesting and compelling. And then with Fred, it was just the dancing. I was a dancer from day one, and so that was what I loved about him.
Yeah, and so you kept that dream through all of your transitions of moves with your family. And
Uh-huh.
in Guam, was there
In
any
Guam,
like,
I
yeah.
started a ballet school. I
Wow.
taught ballet. I became a disc jockey for the Armed Forces Network Guam. Uh, so I'm not even sure how that happened, but
Yeah.
I did. And so I've always found the arts, the expression through the arts
Hmm.
and doing plays, extremely freeing for me. That was where I got to feel like I was myself.
Yeah. And it seems like you aren't afraid to create an opportunity either when there might not be one around you.
I didn't realize it till maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago, which is still when I was in my 50s. And I realized, yeah, I've been an entrepreneur
Hmm.
my whole life. Because as an actor, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
If you don't do anything, nothing happens, right?
Yes. So how did that dream of yours compare to your actual experience of living in Los Angeles and pounding the pavement and trying to do the acting
Oh,
thing?
well, I was so naive, but what did happen that was fantastic, I had met someone in Texas who was on the road with a band, and he gave me his number. If you're in when you move to LA or you come to LA, call me. And so I did. And I said, I want to get into an acting class. I thought that would be a great way to meet people, to find out what was going on. And he told me about improv classes that were run by the Committee, which was an improvisational theater company at the time. And so I showed up. I think that was classes were $1. So it was in my budget. And I had been a very shy and saw myself as an introvert. I'd been a very shy person, but these improv classes just were liberating. So I ended up eventually, when the Committee left, a company called the Synergy Trust was formed, and I became the youngest member of the Synergy Trust. And we did completely improvised shows. And I did that for 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, so that I did get, so I eventually got an agent and I got a little bit of work, but I got to do this improvisation, and that was also life-changing.
Okay, and so when was that moment in comparison to the one where you were describing you were laying despondent on your floor and had this
I,
message that you didn't need to be miserable?
well, I didn't make any money doing the improv. So I was still pretty nice. I was in the company at the time, and I've actually, by that point, it had ended. There were kind of internal politics going on that we decided to lead ourselves, and as a group, it didn't quite work out so well when we didn't have a leader, and so it was a great experience, but it was over at that point, and that's when I started to really feel lost.
Yeah. So what was it that from that moment, where did you go? What was it that got you
I
out of it?
asked for guidance.
Mm.
I just intuitively asked for guidance, and I would find a book in a bookstore and read it. I don't remember the names of those books at this point in time, but it was a long time ago. But I just had this intention of seeking. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually I got involved with, so I took an acting, I kept acting. So I was in an acting class, and the teacher of that class was into metaphysics, and was a bunch of the students were all into metaphysics, and so I got involved and took a class in metaphysics, and eventually read the book The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, and that taught me that I wasn't a victim of circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
that I had choice,
Yeah.
and that was a really profound experience.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you, because of your conservative background, how you were able to navigate that. But you just answered, so
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, I always had issues with the, like, why are we bowing our heads? If God's in heaven, why aren't we looking up? That started when I was about 7 or 8 or something. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I have similar. Yeah.
yeah. And I had did you ever do sense memory work?
I've done it a little bit, yeah.
So
Hmm.
I was in a class and we did sense memory work, and I was doing sense memory work for when I was baptized in the church. And in the baptism, I was literally dunked into water.
Oh,
I was
wow.
11. I was 11, and I went into a tank of water, and I was dunked back into the water. So I was doing this sense memory, and all of a sudden I became so angry
Mm,
because uh, I had been sold something, but not taught the meaning of it.
yeah.
So that was an interesting experience.
Oh yeah, I imagine I can actually feel how that could feel with just you describing that moment.
Yeah, like I'm doing this thing, and it's so, because it was all emotional pull. The songs, the music, the preacher, and all of this, like pulling you in emotionally, but not connecting it to the intellect, and to the
Hmm.
understanding, and how to live my life other than being in the fear of God, which never made sense to me.
Right. And so you're taking these acting classes,
Mm-hmm.
and you are choosing to take charge of your life, and you don't have to be a victim of your circumstances anymore.
Yes, yes.
So what happens next?
I One of the things that I did instinctually was to feel the depth of my feelings. And so as I got more into it, I was learning that First of all, I was very interested in practical metaphysics. I wasn't interested in the airy fairy, let's just all love everybody kind of thing. And I got turned on to a teacher, waiting tables in LA. What else does an actor do but wait tables? and and so I was really looking at the specifics under trying to understand the behavior, which is another thing that I think acting is really wonderful at teaching you: motivation and understanding why do we behave the way we do. And I began to look at my own behavior and beliefs that I had that caused fear. And but as I would feel the fear, then it would open up an epiphany. It would be like, oh, I'd have some kind of realization, some kind of insight, and I would became more free in terms of my having more fun, engaging more with others, because I'd been very shy. I became more outgoing, and I was a survivor, so I was always working. But I realized that the spirituality of my life became equal, if not more important than whether I was successful as an actor or not. And eventually, I left acting because it just the lifestyle of it was difficult. And I just put my focus on growing spiritually as a person.
Mm-hmm. So what was there a particular moment when you decided to hang up your acting hat?
Yes, I was doing a metaphysical workshop, and the teacher said, on the break, I want you to answer this question: what would you do if you could not fail? And I'm going, oh, yeah. And I went, oh, screw it. I'd moved to San Francisco. My best friend who I'd met through metaphysics, she had moved to the Bay Area and she loved it. And I never felt it quite at home in LA. And I just decided that I was going, if I'm a loser, I'll stay. If I'm a winner, I'll go. And so I left. And I just left it all behind. And over time, interestingly enough, I got involved in a support group, and our group was to tell ourselves the truth about what we really wanted to do in life and then take action. And the truth that we were to tell ourselves was the emotional truth. And I had already done quite a bit of work and gotten really in tune with my emotions. And when I did that, I went, oh, I feel like I want to act again. I miss it. I really missed it. And so I auditioned for a play. I got in the middle of it. The director quit. I volunteered. I ended up directing the play, got an agent and started acting, but with a very different attitude this time. I wasn't attached to my self-worth and self-value as to whether I got a gig or not. So it all evolved. And then eventually I went into teaching.
Yeah, isn't it funny how that happens when you don't care about it so much that things trickle in and
yes. Yeah. That don't take things too personally.
Right.
Yeah. And then it was fun.
What play was it?
I don't remember. It wasn't a known play. It was some local person putting on their play in a little tiny theater.
Well, that's okay. That counts.
Yes, it does. It does. And I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't remember the name of it.
That's all right. So you were living in San Francisco and you were in alignment with yourself and your emotions, and you were doing this play. And so what happens? I feel like you taught acting too. Was that in San Francisco?
Yes, I started. Yes, I took. So then after I got the play, and I went, oh, this feels really good. I'm happy to do this again. I got into an acting class again. Again, I thought, oh, well, this is what I need. And the teacher was film acting. And the teacher was like one of the best acting schools in San Francisco. And after a while, I became his assistant. And then he invited me to teach a class to beginning students. So it's things just keep, and then there was someone I met there who had I'm sorry, I got a little confused because it was so long ago. There was a regular acting class, and then it's just like, wow, I can express myself in a whole other level than I could earlier. So I think my acting got way better. And then I wanted to make some money at it. And I took a commercial audition class, and that's the teacher that asked me to teach for his school. So then I taught beginning on camera acting. And it was his method, so which was fine. But I found that I had a certain gift for teaching, and I felt free when I was teaching. It was not in my ego at all.
Yeah. So how would you, as an acting teacher and someone who's been an actor also,
Mhm.
how would you express the importance of emotional intelligence within acting?
Oh, well, one of the things that I did was when I had an epiphany that I was here to teach people how to feel. That was another inner voice speaking. And in that class, it was called Accessing Your Emotions. And I found that people, their acting dropped into a level of reality when they got in touch with their own emotions instead of portraying emotions. And I think that it's extremely important because not only for the quality of your acting and your ability to go to places, but also in how you handle and manage having a career, going on auditions, having the disappointments of the not getting the jobs or the issues that come up. So I mean, I think it's value in all stages of life, but for actors, there's the added bonus of it being beneficial to your work and to the quality and depth of your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it frees up in the class. One of the things, I had this exercise that students would just get in touch with the thing that blocked them in terms of their self-confidence, the belief in themselves, because we have a lot of unconscious, unspoken things in our being, that are beliefs, experiences that stop us, that we're just not aware of. And so when you can bring that connection to those through your emotions, through feeling your shame, for example, which is a difficult emotion for people, but there's a gift in that. And when you can access that gift, it just frees up all kinds of aspects of your ability to take action on what you really want to do and who you want to be.
Yeah. And there's parts of acting, at least to me, that I've experienced the moments where it feels like you're in a flow,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
like a moving meditation almost.
Yeah.
It seems like maybe those moments are connected with the moments when you're really allowing yourself to feel those emotions without any kind of um, censoring.
Yes. Yes, because you're not afraid of feeling them.
Mm-hmm.
They will flow through you. My motto is that life is richer when you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a richness that comes into your own experience, even if you're in a scene where you're devastated. I actually love those kinds of rich, scenes, because of being in touch with grief or rage on a free level where it's just flowing is really actually quite fulfilling and exciting.
Yeah. I think so too.
And the connection with other people when you're doing it is like, oh.
Yes. So, you were teaching acting classes, and where do you go from there to writing a book and everything that you were doing now?
Well, I was teaching the class, and students would come say, yeah, my acting is better, and this is affecting my life. I had this conversation with my husband, or I realize I need therapy, or this, whatever it is that they were telling me. And I was thinking, wow, there's something bigger than me going on here. And I realized that I wanted to be able to handle whatever happened if somebody got triggered, because I know people have trauma and they have issues, powerful issues, and I wanted to be able to handle things. So I decided to go back to school and get a master's. Eventually, I went back to school for transpersonal psychology, but I ended up discovering and falling in love with somatic psychology. So I got a master's in somatic counseling psychology, because soma is the whole person, including the body. And it made so much sense because emotions are a biological information system. So things that I had learned through, and my class, Accessing Your Emotions, had aspects of metaphysics. It had part of my spiritual growth. It had acting tools and techniques. It had sense memory and other things, and intention and all of the other aspects of acting. But this thing was bigger than me. And I went to see a counselor because I felt like, even though I was now making my living as an actor and acting teacher, I had finally gotten married. I had not been able to have relationships work when I was younger. And so at 45, I got married. I was living in the Marina District of San Francisco, which is just like so wonderful. And I thought I was, I've arrived. That's it. And I hear this voice. You talk about the inner voice. And this voice in my head kept saying, now what? Now what? So I had a consultation with this spiritual person, and she said, well, what do you do better than anybody else in the world? And at first I just froze because it was the most intimidating question I've ever been asked. Me? More than anybody? But before I could think, out of my mouth came, I feel. And then I said, oh my God, my name is Joy. I think I'm supposed to teach people how to feel. And so that's when I actually created the Accessing Emotions class. So then when I went to grad school, and then I got that information, and I said, like, I created a system. I ended up having this system of what are emotions and what is sadness and what is fear and anger and how do they operate in the body and what is their purpose. And so then I realized that I need to put it in a book. And if I don't write this book, I'll never forgive myself. So I spent about 2 years actually over in the long run writing the book, Emotions and Owner's Manual. So that's what that led to.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a really intense and fascinating process of writing the book.
It was, and I just had this compulsion to do it. And it's the funny thing to me it's a surprising thing. So in the book are segments on sadness, fear, anger, and joy. These are the 4 fundamental cornerstone emotions out of which all other feelings come. This is my perception and belief. And I went, oh, fear and anger. I know a lot about that. I've done a lot of work with that. I've worked with clients and students. And when I got to joy, I thought, oh, that'll be easy. And I ended up spending as much time, right? So I wrote so much about it because I was discovering things as I wrote. And I couldn't put it all in the book. I had to actually take a whole segment out because it just didn't fit in. But what I discovered in that is that joy is the emotion of connection. So it's not about, it's happiness, yes, can be part of it, but it's our sense of connection to ourself, to others, to spirit, to nature, whatever. And that it's not the exclusion of other emotions, but the inclusion of all our feelings when we are authentically connected to what we're feeling.
Wow, yeah. I feel like you're kind of like intuitively reading my mind because you're answering questions that I'm about to ask you. Because I was going to ask you what you learned about yourself during the process of writing your book. And there you go.
And that's it. And my name is Joy, So
Right.
it was like, oh, my name is my teacher. Because I was not a joyful person. I mean, I changed the spelling from Joy to Joie in my high school French class because it was just too much pressure to have the name Joy. I couldn't relate to it. I felt like a phony. And even in my journey of learning how to be more emotionally connected, feeling joy was difficult. Being happy was never my goal. Being fulfilling my potential and experience fulfillment, that was always my goal. But happiness would be nice. But when I got the joy, it was like, oh, I have to train myself to feel the vibration because it's expansive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it also seems like the voice that was guiding you is not letting you rest.
No, it's not. It's still talking to me.
It wants you to keep going and understand that we're always ever changing, and there's no like
Yes,
really moment that you achieve and then you're done. It's
that's
yeah.
right. Exactly. Well, that goal that I had for learning what the truth was about life, when I back in my first really big pivotal moment, I realized that we don't know what the truth is, the truth. No one knows the truth about life. But what we can know is the moment to moment truth of how we feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
And that can guide us.
Yes, and we live in a society where feeling is so not accepted or blocked off from so many
Yeah. I,
different.
we've got it all backwards, is
Mhm.
how I just recently this has come to me in this thought. And now, of course, I say, come voice, come.
Right.
I listen to it for sure now because it's always been right. But that idea that emotions are actually the thing that we all share. We can have different cultures, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, and all of that, gender orientation, all of that. But we share when I feel angry and you feel angry, we have something in common. And so I really am moving more and more towards my vision is that to promote the idea that we're going to connect through the thing that everybody tells you makes you weak. You should, that's a bad emotion. There's no negative emotion. There is
Mhm.
only the reaction to it, the suppression, denial, or being overwhelmed by it that creates a negative circumstance. It's not the emotion itself.
Yes, and then also I feel
Uh-huh.
um, that the more specific you get in sharing your emotions and your experiences, strangely, the more that someone else can relate.
Yes. Yes. Brilliant. I totally concur with that. Yes, it's like the specifics of acting. The more
Hmm.
specific you are in your choices, the richer your acting is. And it's the same with emotions. The more specific you are, because there are nuances.
Hmm.
One of the things that I distinguish is there are primary emotions and there are feelings. So if we say I'm anxious, it's a it's a kind of general term. You can say you're anxious and I can say I'm anxious, but I don't know exactly what your anxiety is
Hmm.
like. But if you say, well, I'm feeling fear and my fear is about this and I also have some anger about that, and then there's some grief over here, a little bit of grief that's coming in, and that's my anxiety. And then I go, oh, now I can understand.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Goody.
So now you're taking the principles that you wrote about in your book and you're coaching others on how
Mhm.
to access their emotions.
Yes.
So what is the process like? Do you mind sharing like some of your techniques?
I sure, absolutely, and I do a lot of. I kind of got into working with people in the business world. I actually started out having a lot of actor clients when I was a somatic therapist, and I do find that working with people in the business world surprised me because they're creative. They have trauma. We all have trauma. I don't think you can get past the age of 2 and not have trauma in the modern world. Uh, but what I do is start with looking at your beliefs and attitudes about, what were you taught? I have a questionnaire that I have people fill out. So there's goals and all of that, but it's like, how did your parents handle emotions? And looking at what you believe about specific emotions, because we have a lot of false beliefs and there's a lot of myths. And then it starts with basic education. So, for example, fear. Fear runs a lot of our choices unconsciously. If your life is directly threatened, you have fight or flight. You have this instinct that's there to move faster than you can consciously think so that you can save yourself. A lot of it is about safety.
Mm-hmm.
And in interpersonal relationships, when fear comes up, its message is pay attention. It's not that there's anything wrong. It's just something needs to be paid attention to. And so it starts with a fundamental education of what are emotions, what's the inherent meaning in these different emotions. And then you get to know what goes on in your own body. Because fear is a contracting emotion. Each emotion has I think the idea that emotions are energy in motion. They have a direction of motion. So sadness is inward moving, fear is inward moving, anger is outward moving, joy is outward moving. So they have these directions. So it starts with that. And then there are things around boundaries, energetic boundaries, how to create space for yourself.
Yeah. You read my mind again. I was gonna ask you the importance of boundaries, and how to apply them, especially when you get into people like actors who are, generally more empathic than most people.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, my lesson in boundaries was in grad school, and we had a guest teacher, and we were in a big room. They cleared all the chairs away, so we were in a big circle, and he had a student stand at one side of the circle, and he stood at the other, and he walked very slowly to this person until he got right in front of his face, and he said, "Oh, this person has very tight, close-held boundaries." He wasn't affected at all by this person walking towards him. So I volunteered for the next round. I'm standing on one side, the teacher stands with his side to me on the opposite side of the room, and he turns towards me, and I flinch. And he said, your boundaries are way out here. And that was the start of my journey. And I found that I work with every client I have, we end up having to do boundary work because it's not taught, especially women, not exclusively, but especially women, to be able to set boundaries and to be there. They should be permeable, but you need to be the one who chooses, so that you can literally pull that energy into you. You can make it strong, you can make it soft, and you create space for yourself within your boundaries. It's not just about keeping negative things out. It's about creating space in which you can function at your best.
Yes. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of my study and research on boundaries specifically for actors, because I find it fascinating, especially because like showmances are so commonplace, and we're not really taught as actors how to create a boundary between like the rehearsal or show process and then our real lives. We're not shown how to create that separation.
Yes. Yes. There are internal boundaries, external boundaries, physical boundaries, mental boundaries. It's huge and so important. I love that you're doing that. And I think for actors in particular, because we have a heart involved in the work. When I was a teacher, I had many different students from many walks of life, many who were, well, I'm going to take an acting class, even though I'm a lawyer, or I'm a nurse, or and they're all people who have this desire for self-expression. And it's not a mental expression, it's a heart expression, is what I believe.
Yes, absolutely. And so you work with actors and now the business people. And so what do you find most common with the business folks that you work with, as far as their emotions and their feelings?
They they have the same issues no matter what country they live in or what culture they come from. They're the A common theme is that they have something that they want to say. They see something in the company they work for that needs fixing or that could be done better, or they're being treated by someone else in a disrespectful or dismissive way, and they want to speak up. They want to contribute. They want to give something of themselves rather than just the technical aspect, and they have fear. They don't know how. They just don't even know how to begin, and they end up feeling either full of fear or full of anger. Resentful, pissed off. And they're scared. I had a woman said, I'm afraid that if I don't get help, that I'm just going to blow up
Oh, wow.
at work and I'm going to lose it. And so one of the things I start with is boundaries so that you can create a space for you to hold that. And I've seen people completely transform relationships with other people. A lot of it is personal. It may look like it's something to do with the job or the work, but it's always about our personal lives,
Right.
our personal issues, or maybe it's about parental stuff, even for women in their 40s and 50s who are taking care of their aging parents. There are a lot of that shows up a lot, surprisingly. It was to me at first, but
Yes.
yeah.
Did you find that this intensified during COVID? Did you see?
It was interesting because people said, "Oh, you must be so busy with COVID," but I found that people really went into the isolation piece and kind of stayed there. So I have done I have done work. What the people that have shown up for me are what are called HSPs, and they're highly sensitive people. I've always known I was highly sensitive. I think a lot of actors are highly sensitive. That's part of their gift. But I didn't know there was an actual scientific designation called HSP until I got on Clubhouse. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yes.
Clubhouse. There's an HSP room, and I'm now a co-moderator in that room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, because I love supporting sensitivity in people so that you recognize that it is a strength.
Yes, I think it also helps you access your authenticity too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the world needs sensitivity. We have so many people so cut off from their feelings because they don't feel safe and they don't know how to manage that. So that's and overwhelm, burnout. So I do presentations and talk about how to build up and not burn out, and give skills, just some basic tools and techniques. And I'm happy to share some today with your listeners.
Yeah, we love that.
Yeah. Well, I give you one right now that I actually learned from an acting. Actually, I learned this from a friend, but I also learned one that I loved from one of my acting teachers who I ended up teaching for his school, because the emotions happen in the body. And when we get anxious, when we go into fight or flight, and we may not think, I'm in fight or flight, but it's that survival instinct that kicks in. We contract, and all of your energy comes up around your head, neck, and shoulders. That's why people get stiff necks, and because 4 out of our 5 senses are located in this area: our sight for seeing, nose for smelling, our taste, and our hearing. We perceive things from the outside world through our 5 senses. Now, of course, we have a 6th sense and probably other senses, but that intuitive sense that you talk about, that inner voice, that's something else, but it's all related. But the idea is that because our safety instinct kicks in. So all the energy comes up around our head, neck, and shoulders. So the first thing to do is not to try to get rid of the tension or get rid of the stress, but to flow energy down into the lower part of your body. And the quickest way to do this is called the 3 balls technique. This is my most popular tool. So I'm happy to share it.
Yeah.
And it is, the first is that put your attention on the balls of your feet. Yi Dao, Shi Dao. I study Qigong, and in martial arts, Yi Dao, Shi Dao, where your attention goes, so goes your energy. This is why when you worry, that all your energy is going to go to thinking about what's going to go wrong. So you put your attention on the balls of your feet. And if anybody listening isn't sure where that is, it's that little pad area between your toes and your arch of your foot. Okay, you got that?
Yes.
Now you put your attention at the same time, if you're a woman, on your ovaries, if you're a man, on your testicles. So you're putting your attention, your focus on the balls of your feet and your ovaries or your testicles. And now we add the third one, which is your eyeballs. Not even your whole eye, just your eyeballs. So your attention is on the balls of your feet, your ovaries or testicles, and your eyeballs. And then just notice. What do you notice?
Wow, yeah. My awareness is totally different.
Say more.
Yeah, I feel like I'm zooming out in perspective. Like if I maintained that for a while by myself, I could probably like go pretty far out.
Uh-huh. So your perspective is, you
It's
have a
like,
wider, a broader
yeah.
perspective.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Great. And what I've seen when I used to teach a class called Having Fun with Fear in Auditions, and it was all about managing emotions for auditions. And I would see people's whole demeanor. They'd take a breath, they'd settle into their bodies, their face would change from this tense, pinched, lines in the forehead kind of thing to just this openness. And so this is a tool you can do anytime, anywhere, and nobody knows what you're doing, but it brings you down into your body. And at the same time, it connects your brain, your thinking, your mind to the rest of your body and to your power center, your lower abdomen,
Hmm.
and then your feet for grounding. So you're grounded, you're in your power center and in your thinking mind all at the same time.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that could be really, really helpful for people. Um, it has a very gentle feeling to it also.
Yes, you're not efforting.
Hmm.
There's no effort to it. It's just awareness.
Yeah.
And then the energy flows. Great before an audition.
Yeah,
Or you're ready to perform, or
or a job interview
a
or
job interview.
yeah, like
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, going to have a difficult conversation. In fact,
Hmm.
on my website, I offer 5 tips to prepare for a difficult conversation. And I actually take people through, there's an audio guided experience that goes with part of that, and that's taking them through energetic boundaries and then recognizing, getting into the body.
So it's all super important right now, especially.
Yes, yes, yes. I think that this is a evolutionary time, and evolution is not pretty.
Right. You have to get
Right?
uncomfortable for a while. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And that so many people avoid emotions because, oh, it's so uncomfortable. But what's the alternative?
Well, I feel like we're getting to the point where we're getting collectively uncomfortable and we can't ignore it any
Yeah,
longer.
yes.
Um, and and so people are gonna either have to get comfortable with it or I don't know what's gonna happen.
Right. And Oh, I'm trying to remember. I just heard this the other day. I've always said that emotions come and go. They flow, you get the message, and they move through you. Sadness is the one that has its own timing. Sadness is about loss. And when we have a major loss, it takes some time to process that loss. And even then, 20 years later, you can think of a person who meant a lot to you, and you can get sad in a moment about that, but it doesn't mean you're carrying sadness all that time. So somebody has sort of proved doing scientific studies of the brain and the body electric system that emotions last about 90 seconds. When we allow them, when we feel them, they last about 90 seconds and then they're gone. So that discomfort is really not going to last all that long. It lasts when you hold on to the emotion, or when you deny it or suppress it. That energy is in your body and it's going to stay there until you hear it or get it. And that can mean back problems, stomach aches, ulcers, all kinds of ailments. It affects your autonomic nervous system. It affects your immune system. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something that we're taught.
No. We're taught, take this pill, drink this drink, buy this product, and feel better.
Right.
When your ability to feel better is inside of you.
Yeah, I just am imagining like the difference my life would have been if I had learned that like as a child.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Oh my God. Don't get me started on that one. But that's why I wanted to write a book too, because it's I've had parents say, yeah, all parents should have this book, because it's something we can teach our children, because it's simple. It's really not complicated. And there are wonderful organizations and people who are doing work specifically with children to teach them emotional intelligence and teach them to recognize. I mean, in kids, you're already connected to the emotion. You just need the message that that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, support and empathy and compassion and all of that.
Absolutely. Okay, so if someone would like to work with you, where can we guide them?
Well, that you can go directly to my calendar and schedule a complimentary half-hour consultation just to talk and see if it's the right match and what your needs are at joyetotherescue.com. And it is spelled JOIE, as in joie de vivre. So joyetotherescue.com. You can also go to my website and just check out information and offerings at joieseldon.com. So it's JOIESELDON.com. I do have a course called Emotions at Work, so people in the workplace can check that out. It's a fantastic online course that I have.
Excellent. I'll put all of those links into the show notes so people can click on them very easily.
Great. Thank you. This has been so fun talking about acting. I can't tell you. I just I love it. And there are times when I think I really need to teach acting again, because I love actors, love working with actors, creative people, are beautiful people in the world, and also need support. We all need support, but.
Absolutely. Yeah, I might sign up for this consultation. We'll see what happens.
Great. Oh, love that. Love that.
Yeah, so to wrap up the conversation, I usually ask one question.
Okay.
And that is, if your inner voice had a billboard, what would it say to the world?
Life is richer when you feel it.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to contact me or reach me, you can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much. And until next time, stay tuned in to you.